I'm 30, my boyfriend 31, have been dating for 6 months. We met through a mutual friend and things went from there. We do not live together. We do, however, spend enough time but more outside. A week ago, while we were out with friends, my boyfriend asked if I could make a copy of the key to my apartment. For a little bit of context, I own an apartment while he rents with his friends, and let him have it. I was puzzled and asked why. He said he might need to stop by alone or with some friends when I'm at work or somewhere. To be honest, I just did not feel like it was a good idea. I asked what business does he have in my apartment when I'm out, and he took offense to that. A few seconds of awkward silence later, then I told him that I don't feel comfortable having anyone at my apartment unless I'm there, and that he gets to have a copy of the key only if he lives there, and that's it. He got quiet for the rest of the evening, but after we left, he sent a long wall of text basically criticizing what I had said to him and talking about how I don't trust him. I said that I just didn't think he should have a copy unless he's living with me, and he took it as in I was pushing him to move in. But as far as I know, he lives with a bunch of guys paying rent, so not the best living arrangement, and he constantly complains. We had an argument and he insisted that I have no trust in him, that I embarrassed him in front of his friends by declining to let him have a copy of the key. He then hung up and kept sulking. I tried calling him again, but one of his friends picked up and got involved, saying my boyfriend is rightfully upset with me for not treating him like my partner and showing him the respect that he deserves. He said me refusing to give him a copy of the key means 1, I don't trust him or his friends, and 2, I think he's a thief and can't be trusted with my belongings. It got overwhelming, and I started to think that I flew off the handle and was unfair to him by flat out refusing and then not explaining my point. Am I the asshole for not letting my boyfriend have a copy of the key to my apartment? I was in a very bad car accident about 3 years ago. A drunk driver ran a stoplight, cut off a semi-truck, which then crashed into me, sending me crashing into 2 different cars and then ultimately into an embankment. My car was completely mangled and my legs were crushed, completely destroyed, and it had to be amputated. I also lost a couple fingers, the tip of one and all of the other. I'm also left with some gnarly scars that used to bother me, but I'm learning to deal with them. I got a couple different insurance payouts and some pain and suffering money in addition to my medical bills being paid, and with my money I purchased a custom-made leg to take the place of the one I lost. When I have pants and shoes on, you can hardly tell unless you're really looking. I still limp, but some days I don't have as pronounced a limp. Earlier today, I went to the store with my boyfriend, my sister, her girlfriend, and our mother. I had to learn to drive with my left foot, but I'm really good at it now. I also bought a new car with my money and had to go through a ton of therapy to get past my PTSD, but I'm doing well there now as well. So I drove us, and because of my injuries, in addition to my leg, I also have chronic hip, neck, and back pain and some issues with my lungs from the time I spent intubated in medically induced coma that led to pneumonia. I have a handicap placard for my car. I have trouble walking without getting tired, so it really helps to park close to the door. Today I did so and unknowingly took the space from someone who was circling back around for it. Apparently the man had been looking for a closed space and had missed the one I took and went down and around. He was still on the other aisle when I pulled in, so I didn't cut him off or anything and had no way of knowing that he wanted the spot. He parked in a yellow striped zone and got out and immediately began confronting me about stealing a space from him who actually needed it. How I'm just some kid who has no respect for those who are truly sick and suffering. He then ordered me to move. My group was just urging me to walk away, but this has happened before and once the police were even called. I'm sick of people thinking that just because I'm young, I don't have a legit need for a little extra consideration. I said, okay, and went to the car and got in like I was going to drive off. I was wearing a skirt and leggings, so it wasn't quite obvious at first, but when I sat down, I took my leg off and showed it to the man, including my stump. I then asked him if it was okay if I still parked there. He walked away calling me disgusting and rude and said I could have just told him and I made him look stupid. My group was embarrassed and said that I made things awkward because there was a crowd. So, am I the asshole for taking my leg off and making someone look dumb and feel uncomfortable? I'm 26 and my husband is 31. I was planning on having a girls' night in at home and he initially was like, no, not here, get a hotel or something. I said I couldn't afford a hotel, plus there was no need for one. He asked if he could join us if he's going to allow it, but I said no, this isn't how girls' night works. He eventually agreed to let me have it and even said he'd go out so my friends could be more comfortable. I invited the girls over and most of them had a lot of heavy venting to do. At some point things got a bit emotionally charged and there was crying, lots of it. After we brought in the food and drinks, when I went to turn on the TV, I spotted a small device tucked on the side. I took a look and found that it was actually a voice recording device. I was in disbelief. I knew my husband put it there to listen to our private conversations, which felt highly violating. I didn't hide it from the girls. I showed them the device, called my husband to get him to come home, and confronted him right there in front of the girls. The girls were shocked and my husband denied it after I flipped out and called him out. Then he said he was feeling curious to know about what we were talking about and wanted to make sure we weren't trash talking him specifically. The event was cut short and the girls left. I kept lashing out at him for ruining the night and possibly my relationship and trust with my friends. I said not only did he violate my privacy, but my friends as well, because they were talking about very personal stuff. He argued that it was no big deal, that I should have just let him join us if we had nothing to hide, and that this was on them for opening up about private matters to begin with. He went on to talk about how I humiliated him by calling him out in front of my friends. I told him they deserve to know who he really is after what he's done. We argued some more and then he went out again. We're still fighting till today and I feel like I made a mistake calling him out like that aside from how I felt about it. He claims that my friends will no longer respect him after that. Am I the asshole for calling my husband out in front of my friends for planning a recording device while we were having a girls' night in? I was adopted at 3 months old. I had a dysfunctional family growing up, but I was cared for and loved. Both my adoptive parents passed away in separate car accidents, my dad when I was 17 and my mom 3 years ago when I was 24. I had a semi-open adoption, but my parents requested my adoptive parents to stop sending them photos and updates about me when I was less than a year old. I had a vague idea of who my parents were. I grew up knowing their names and I had several photos of them. I did a DNA test and was matched with 3 full siblings, which shocked me. I was always told my parents were young, barely knew each other, and wanted to further their education. About 3 months ago, I decided to Google their names and found them on social media. It turns out they're married to each other now with 7 more children they had together. I stalked them on Facebook for a bit and it seems like they have a relatively happy life. I was shocked to find out that I have 7 full siblings and that my sister, who is closest in age to me, is actually only 11 months younger. I was even more shocked to find out that I have an older, full brother who was not adopted out, who is only a year and a few months older than me. I ended up reaching out to my birth mother via Facebook, telling her that I would love to get to know her and that I've had a great life and I have no expectations. She took a month to respond, and when she did, she was surprised that I reached out and to please not contact any of my siblings as they weren't aware of my existence. I didn't respond for a few days, but I ended up just asking her why she chose to give me up and why she never told anyone about me. She responded and said that I was a NICU baby. She and my birth father were 17 when I was born and they weren't prepared to raise a disabled child. She said at the time they were under the impression that I would never live independently and they weren't in a place to have a special needs child. I was again shocked. I definitely always was in the lower priced house for growth until puberty, but according to my grandmother, by the time I was 8 months old, I was hitting all the markers for regular mental development. I have an MS in mathematics from a tier 1 university. I was an athlete in high school and I never had any issues in school beyond being really horrible in art class. I'm married with a child. I'm a fully functioning adult with a great career and a family of my own, and it hurts to know that I was given up because of the slight chance that I wouldn't turn out to be perfect. Part of me feels like I miss out on life with siblings. I was raised as an only child, and that I could still have a chance to know them and love them, and that my daughter would have a chance to have cousins. My youngest siblings aren't even in elementary school yet, and I could have a normal sibling bond with them, or at least be part of their lives from a young age, and I wish that I had that chance. I'm not angry at my birth parents for giving me away. I don't hate them. I'm hurt, but I'm not angry. I am angry that they've requested I not reach out to my adult siblings, and I'm considering doing it anyway. Should I ignore my birth parents' wishes and reach out to them anyway? I have a diary in which I write a lot in. It has been with me for 5 years, including very intimate moments. Basically, by intimate, it includes things like my crushes and relationships, body issues, social media account info, aka my literal passwords, and even things that I would never willingly share, like my sexual interests and what I like to look for in a partner. As a child, my parents would only preach privacy to me and my siblings. Looking back at my childhood, I can see that they preached this idea way too much. I guess that's why in my mind I never would have expected for my privacy to be breached this way. Okay, so in the middle of the night, I ended up waking up and being incredibly thirsty, so I went downstairs to grab a drink, and to my shock, I see my mom, my dad, and both my siblings sitting together on the sofa with my diary in their hands. I was so confused and I couldn't utter a single word. I just went up and snatched my water bottle and my diary and went back to my room and just stayed there. The next day, in private, I grabbed my parents to another room and asked them what the hell I saw yesterday. At first, they tried to play it off as an accident. But what the fuck, I literally saw all 4 people around my diary. But after more pressure, they admitted that they had been constantly reading my diary with my siblings, and their excuse was, we just want to make sure that our child is okay. So I phoned one of my friends who I knew was looking for a roommate and agreed. In the span of the next few days, I secretly removed all my stuff and moved into his house, and eventually by the end of the week, I was gone. Once at his house, I just broke down and I just couldn't imagine that all my privacy was breached by the people who would preach respecting privacy to me the most. My parents tried calling, but I ignored them, and my siblings keep texting saying that I'm too sensitive and even have insulted me mentioning some of the private stuff that they read in my diary. So I blocked them and also changed all my passwords. Am I the asshole for moving out after realizing that my entire family would constantly read and discuss my diary with each other? Friend Dan recently found out that he might be a father. I say might because the girl he's been having an on and off relationship with, Kara, is pregnant and he's not sure if he's the dad. She offered to get a paternity test once the baby is born and doesn't expect any kind of support until they find out if the baby is his. He's on board with that and appreciates that she's not pushing him into fatherhood if the baby isn't his. The issue is that when he was talking to me about it, he also said that he wants to get a maternity test done to make sure the baby is hers. Kara is visibly pregnant. We know she's pregnant because she did a maternity photo shoot and posted it on social media, so it's obvious she's not faking being pregnant. We've both seen her in person too, and she's most definitely pregnant. However, Dan believes the baby might not be hers. I tried to explain to him that that's not how biology works, and unless she's got an embryo implanted in her, then she's definitely the mother. She's a waitress and works for minimum wage plus tips, so I doubt that she has the money to afford an embryo implantation. Plus, it's ridiculous to think that she'd do all of this just to baby trap a guy who is unemployed and living at his parents at 32. He's genuinely convinced that the baby might not be biologically hers, despite not only me, his mom, and our other friends explaining that's not how babies and pregnancy works. He's still insisting on a maternity test and told me that I was being ridiculous and that I'm the one who doesn't understand biology, despite me studying to be an autopsy pathologist, which has required literally years of biology classes. I got fed up and called him a senseless idiot and told him to call me when he's got his head screwed back on straight. Ever since then, he's been spamming my phone and has gotten a couple of friends to spam me as well, telling me I'm being insensitive and he's just stressed out about possibly being a dad. So, am I the asshole for calling my friend an idiot?
Welcome to the series I'd like to call 1 Minute Storytime. I had the absolute biggest crush on this guy in 9th grade. Like, biggest. Like, oh my god, I was obsessed. Okay, not in a creepy way, but I just, really liked him. One day he followed me after class and he asked me to homecoming, and can you guess what I said? I said yes. Right after me saying yes, he said just kidding. But that's not where the story ends. No. A few days later, he decided to ask my best friend, and she said yes. They ended up going together, and I did not attend homecoming because nobody asked me. But fast forward to a few months ago. I was casually working at my job where I work, where I like to make money, where I work, and he was there. We engaged in some small talk, and he eventually tries to ask if I would like to grab lunch with him one day. I said no. I have a little song that goes with this story. You don't really fuck with me way back then, but how about now?